What's happening, guys? Welcome back to another F1 23 track guide. This time, I'm going to be teaching you guys where you're potentially losing time at Las Vegas. But before we get into this track guide, setups are important for being quick at any circuit. And that is why today's sponsor, SRC or Sim Racing Center, is the only place you need to be fully prepared for your next league race. They currently offer setups built by esports engineers and drivers, and they are actively updating them throughout the game cycle. SRC also offer race preparations for 50% and 100% races, where you get access to tire strategies, fuel loads, all in different conditions as well. And for you guys, my viewers, SRC are kindly offering setups for all circuits at 75 euros, which is around about half the price of what they would usually be. And plus, they've also given a 10% discount if you use code BUSHI at checkout. So if you would like to help support this channel and get access to esports level setups and race preparations, make sure to go to the link in the description or go to simracing-center.com/Bushi or BushiAntz, and remember to use code BUSHI at checkout for that extra 10%. So without further ado, let's get straight on to the track guide. So starting off this lap, there's no real last corner to really get a great exit from, because you're going to be flat out as you're starting the lap anyway. So again, just get the best exit you can out of the previous corner. Turn in late as you're starting your lap, just so that you don't turn the car too much. You're not scrubbing off speed as you're starting your lap. You want to keep it as straight as possible. And then turn one, it comes at you quite quickly, actually. So you want to brake at the 100-meter board in qualifying and race trim when you're using the softs. Now, you want to make sure that the car is kind of diagonal, just slightly, because you don't want to brake on the curb, but you want to make sure that the car is drifting to the curb as you're braking, so that you can get the maximum steering angle as you're turning into the corner. So have it diagonal just a little bit, and then you brake in a straight line, let the car drift out on the curb, and then as you pass the 50-meter board, that's when you want to start turning into the corner, down into third gear or fourth gear, depending on how much rotation you have on the car. It's completely up to whatever setup that you're using. Then you want to make sure that the left-hand tires are hitting the red and white curb here on the left-hand side. Now, depending on, again, your setup will depend on what you do here. If you're in third gear coming out of this corner, you want to short shift up to fourth gear. And if you're in fourth gear, you want to stay in fourth gear. The reason for this is because I don't know if it's because the track hasn't been raced at yet and Codemasters have actually simulated it this way, but this track feels very green. It's not the exact same, but honestly, the traction on this track in particular does feel similar to F122 traction. And I do believe it's because it's not been raced at yet and they've actually simulated that in the game. So I guess it's a good thing, but yeah, you do need to be quite patient on the throttle, and you do need to short shift at a few corners. So fourth gear here, and then you're going to be in fifth gear coming into this next corner, which I believe is turn 3. Now, what you want to do here is there is no braking zone here. It's just a lift off and then getting back onto the throttle. As the Rolex sign on the barrier on the left-hand side, as that dips away from where the car's going, so right around about here, you want to turn in and lift off at the same time. I don't believe it's a full lift off. I believe it's maybe just a half lift off, and then you start to get back on the throttle straight away, or maybe it's a 3/4 lift off and then you start to get back on the throttle right away. As I said, traction can be quite tricky here, so you do want to be very, very patient, or else you will lose the rear of the car and you will go spinning. And then as soon as you feel full traction, full beans, open up DRS, try not to hit that wall on the left-hand side as well, and then you're bombing it down to turn 5 with DRS here in qualifying. So turn 5 again comes at you quite quickly. You want to brake just before the 100-meter board if you're in the middle of the race on mediums or hards, but if you're in race trim at the end on softs, or if you are in qualifying, of course, you want to brake pretty much at the 100-meter board. Braking a complete straight line. This is one of the many heavy braking zones at this track. The turning point for this corner is very, very late, because it is a very tight corner with a very tight exit as well. It's just literally just a wall right there. So you want to turn in as late as possible to get the most as you can from the exit. So roughly around about 25 meters, which would be halfway through the 50-meter board to the black box, is where you want to start turning in. So around about here. And then again, depending on your setup, you want to use either third or fourth gear here. Make sure that the right-hand tires hit this curb just to help rotate the car just a little bit, because again, a lot of people are going to get weight damage from this corner because they're going to underestimate how tight it is on the exit, and it is pretty tight. You want to make sure you keep turning and then get to the walls as close as you can, just to maximize the corner exit there. Now, this is probably the trickiest corner on the entire track, just because it's blind. There's no real reference points. It's just, you kind of have to go with the feel as you're going through the race. You know, it's different braking points depending on what tires you're using, etc., etc. But the general rule of thumb is to stay out wide so that you can actually see the corner coming. You're going to be in 7th gear coming into this corner, and then you're going to notice that there's a yellow, you're going to notice the Pirelli sign changes into a white barrier. As soon as it changes into the white barrier in your vision, that's when you start braking. I'll probably have a quick footage of me doing the corner just so you can see what I'm talking about there. But yeah, as soon as that white barrier comes into view, that's when you start braking. Let the car drift out wide, and it's going to be a corner where you're kind of just turning into the corner at all times, but you want it to be a late one just so that you can maximize the chicane. So turn in quite late in terms of the full lock, and then boom, you want to hit the red and white curbing on the inside here. Then get your foot on the throttle just a little bit, roughly about halfway through, as this corner is quite tight and comes at you quite quickly. You're going to be in 3rd gear in this corner as well. Hit the red and white curb with the right hand tires this time, and then get your foot on the throttle just a little bit, let the car drift out wide again, and then try and get the car back to the right hand side because it is a left hander next. So you're going to be turning as you're getting to the braking zone. Now the braking zone for this one, very, very light braking, roughly about 30-40% if that. And then you want to do that as soon as you pretty much hit the first AWS sign on the right hand side, and then you want to turn in. You want to try and turn in as early as you can, because again, similar to turn 5, the exit is quite tight and you will find yourself hitting the barriers quite often. So you want to sort of try and turn in as early as you can while still hitting a late apex. So you want to make sure that when you're hitting the apex is right around about the end of this curve. That's where the apex is, just so that you can actually get that rotation on the exit that you need to avoid hitting that wall. And believe it or not, that's the end of Sector 1. Sector 1 is extremely long at this track. Not really sure why, but it is. And then you've got this corner. This was the corner that I spun at in the Creator series. I probably have a clip playing right about now. And one thing that I've actually not noticed until I started doing this track guide is there are actually meter boards here. There are meter boards for this corner. Up until this point, I've just been braking based on feel. And apparently my feel is roughly about right until the Creator series. But you want to brake just as you're getting to the 100 meter board. So just before the 100 meter board, or just when the track starts to straighten up, that's when you want to start braking. So yeah, boom, on the brakes. Let the car drift out wide. So you do want to angle it at a point where it's, you know, kind of diagonal going towards the wall. Let the car just drift out wide. Very, very late turning for this corner because you want to maximize the exit. This is the 2-kilometer straight. So this is probably the most important exit on qualifying that you're gonna get, at most circuits, because if you mess this up, you're probably losing like half a second here. So I believe you're gonna be in 8th gear coming into the corner. You want to start turning in just as you reach the MSC sign on the right hand side. I believe you'll be down into 4th or 3rd gear at this point. And then you want to cut this corner. This corner can be cut without invalidating. However, I'm not sure how much it can be cut. I think the most is roughly the curb. So you want to make sure that your left-hand tires isn't going more inside the curb, more inside this corner, sorry, than the curb, which is right about this much here. And then, yeah, just get your foot on the throttle. And this straight is ridiculously long. Like, seriously. If you have DRS, or even if you don't have DRS, if you have more ERS than the person ahead of you, you're most likely going to pass them. It's just that long of a straight. You're just literally just waiting until you start to reach essentially the final braking zone. Now, the final braking zone, you're going to be coming into this corner with a lot of speed. So this is not a corner where you can brake at the 100 meter board. You have to brake slightly before the 100 meter board. So roughly around about here, say 120, 115 meters, because you're just going to be carrying way too much speed. If you brake at the 100, you're either going to lock the fronts or lock the rears, and you're not making the corner. I believe GB did that in the Creator series, and that's what cost him the win, I believe, at Vegas in this. So yeah, you don't want to brake too late here. Brake just before the 100 meter board, and then turn in just as you're reaching the 50 meter board, down into 3rd or 4th gear once again, just depends on your setup. Don't cut this curb. I believe it unsettles the car. I've never really cut it, but I might have seen a few people try it and succeed. Not 100% sure, but I personally just leave it. And then for this next corner, you do want to sort of ride over the curb. Don't ride over it too much though. You want to make sure that your left hand tires are still on the track, or else it will invalidate you. And then yeah, just get your foot on the throttle. This corner can be a little bit tricky if you take it flat out and you're turning in too much. You might lose the rear if your setup's a bit more oversteery. So just be careful with that. Make sure that you're not turning in too much to the corner. And then yeah, that is pretty much just a lap at Vegas here. For the final corner, as you're finishing your lap, you want to make sure that you're turning in much earlier than you did at the start, because you want to minimize the track usage so that you can get to the line as quick as possible. So yeah, that is pretty much a lap at Las Vegas. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you my hot lap in full so that you can see how to tackle this circuit in real time, and then we'll finish things off. Okay then guys, so that is pretty much where you're losing time at Las Vegas. I would like to thank SRC once again for sponsoring this track guide, and I would also like to thank everyone who's currently a channel member for helping support this channel. If you guys do want to help supporting the channel, past just liking and subscribing, make sure to check the join button down below for more information, and I'll catch you guys in my next video.